Peace and cannabis, everyone. Today, I hope you're doing well. This is PoppaDukes, the OG Social Network Podcast. I am here on a beautiful Friday, March 6th. It is 11:34 a.m., and I wanted to get this part two out. But I want to thank my sponsors, Produce for 20, Silk Road, NYC, J Stowe Cannabis Branding, Green Spectrums, Webpod Distributors, and Surfside, of course, Meyer Security as well. And just get to this real quick. Today, we're talking about the high cost of equity, part two, the roots of theft, and the uh, historical parallels and systematic uh, erasure. We have been going through some major predatory issues here with social equity in the state of New York and the horror stories that's been going on. So today we are going to get started. So again, peace and cannabis to the New York cannabis community and those who believe in the promise of true social equity. This is a part two of an op-ed on the high cost of equity, the roots of theft, and the historical parallels of systematic erasure. Grand Risings family, if you're joining us, pull up a chair. We're in the middle of a heavy conversation. In part one, we pulled back the curtain on the current state of New York cannabis market and the loan to own schemes, the predatory contracts, and the way organizations like Housing Works and major MSOs, multi state operators, and ROs, registered organizations, are positioning themselves as saviors while actually consolidating power. But to understand why this is happening in 2026, we have to stop looking at the now and start looking at the always. You see, history doesn't repeat itself, but it sure does rhyme. What we're seeing in the legalization of cannabis isn't a new frontier, it's a remix of a very old, very ugly song. It's the same systematic extraction of wealth that has plagued the BIPOC community since this country's inception. The theft isn't an accident, it's the design. The ghost of Seneca Village. Before the Central Park was the crown jewel of Manhattan, it was Seneca Village. Founded in 1825, it was a thriving, predominantly Black middle class community. These were landowners, these were people building generational wealth when the ink on the Constitution was barely dry. They had churches, schools, and political power because at the time, land ownership was the only way a Black man could vote in New York. What happened? In 1857, the city decided they wanted a park. They used eminent domain as a fancy legal term for state sanctioned theft to clear the land. They paid the residents a pittance on pennies on the dollar and scattered that wealth to the winds. The physical erasure was so complete that for a century, people forgot Seneca Village even existed. Fast forward to 2026, instead of eminent domain, the state issues social equity licenses. They promise the primal real estate of the cannabis market to those harmed by the war on drugs. But when the state fails to provide the promised capital and big corporations step in with predatory management agreements, they result in the same. The result is the same. The BIPOC operators pushed out, and the wealth is consolidated by those already have it. Black Wall Street and the price of prosperity. We often talk about the 1921 Tulsa massacre, Black Wall Street, as an act of physical violence. And it was, but it was also an act of economic sabotage. The Greenwood District was so successful that it threatened the racial hierarchy of the time. When the smoke cleared, the insurance companies refused to pay out. The US law of the time offered no protection for Black assets. Today, the violence is digital and contractual. When a social equity licensee signs a deal with an RO, registered organization, or an MSO, they aren't being met with torches. They're being met with 100-page contracts designed to ensure they fail. These agreements often include liquidation preferences and controlling interest clauses that effectively strip the licensee of their business the moment a single payment is missed. This is the Trojan horse of legalization. The law says social equity, but the fine print says corporate takeover. We are seeing a 2026 version of Rosewood or Seneca Village, where the community builds the value, but the systemic structures ensure they cannot keep it. The politics of the 2026 midterms. As we head into the midterms, the political theater is in full swing. Candidates are lining up to talk about the social justice and restorative economic policy, but let's look at the facts. While Congress continues to drag its feet on federal banking reform, leaving our dispensaries as cash only targets for crime, the state level politics remain entangled with big donor interest. The politicians love the equity branding because it wins votes in the Bronx and Brooklyn. But notice how quiet they get when you ask about the lack of low interest state loans or why the DASNY, Dormitory Authority of State of New York, program has been such a bureaucratic nightmare. The Constitution supposedly protects property rights, but those protections seem a lot thinner when the property owner has legacy background. Okay, when they have a legacy background. This is a must listen for everyone who thinks social equity is a finished job just because a few shops are open. As I often say on the podcast, we are being used as a political prop while the real money is funneled to the same old circles. The Trojan horse, when help is a trap. Let's talk about the specific predatory practices currently at play. We've seen organizations that claim to support the community proposing business agreements that are essentially loan to own traps. They provide the initial capital and the compliance expertise, but the interest rates are astronomically, and the managed fees eat up every cent of profit. If a BIPOC entrepreneur isn't educated in the nuances of corporate law, they are essentially signing their own eviction notice. This is a deliberate assault on our ability to gain generational wealth. By binding those who are not traditionally educated in high finance maneuvers to these lopsided deals, corporations ensure that the wealth extracted from our communities stays in their boardrooms. Who are the culprits? It's not just the MSOs, it's the lawyers who represent both sides of the deal. It's the consultants who charge $10,000 a month to mentor people they are actually leading into a debt trap. It's a game of musical chairs, and the music is about to stop. Why does this persist? Why, in 2026, are we still fighting the same battles they fought in 1857 and in 1921? It persists because the American economic machine is fueled by extraction of labor and value from the marginalized communities. In the cannabis industry, our culture and our lived experience are the fuel, but the owners want to be the ones driving the car. That's capitalism for you. The US law framework is still weighed toward those with the capital to litigate. If the social equity licensee gets screwed by an MSO, they don't have $200,000 in legal fees needed to fight back in court. The system knows this. The predatory practices are built on the assumption that we won't stop. We won't fight or we can fight. Whiteness became equivalent with profit and property. Blackness became synonymous with poverty and debt. As the research shows, this isn't just a quote, it's a business model for those who want to monopolize the New York market. Looking forward, a call to vigilance. So, where does this leave us? It leaves us with the need for radical suspicion. Every agreement, every partnership, and every investment must be scrutinized with the lens of history. We cannot afford to be the next Seneca Village. We cannot allow the wealth generated by the legalization of a plant our people were persecuted for to be siphoned off by descendants of those who did the persecuting. In part three, we're going to talk about the solutions, how we build our own tables, how we educate our community to read the fine print, and how we can finally achieve that elusive goal of generational wealth through unity and collective action. I got to tell you, everybody, I really appreciate everything about you, but I want you to know about the key takeaway points here. Historical echoes, the current displacement of BIPOC cannabis entrepreneurs mirrors the destruction of Seneca Village and Black Wall Street. Contractual warfare. Predatory management agreements are the modern day version of sharecropping, designed to ensure the landlord captures all the profit. Political theater. The 2026 midterms highlights the gap between social equity, rhetoric, and the lack of actual legislative protection for small businesses. Systematic erasure. Without careful intervention, the current cannabis boom will lead to another era of historical erasure where BIPOC contributions are forgotten. Stay tuned for part three, where we discuss how to break the cycle and claim our rightful seat at the table. Stay vigilant, stay informed, and most importantly, stay OG. Let's hope for the best in the midterms. Okay, guys, this is PoppaDukes of the OG Social Network podcast. Please remember to subscribe, follow, like, comment, and share. We are on all the social media platforms: Substack, YouTube, IG, LinkedIn, Facebook. Again, thank you so much. Our next event will be with later on today at 5 o'clock. I will be having a lovely meeting with Regent Wanda L. James. Please be on board. I am so looking forward to talking with her and discussing the future of our nation. So God bless you all very much. Thank you. And remember, we are here to support. Peace and love. God bless. This is PoppaDukes of the OG Social Network podcast. And I am out.